to inspire you to boldly and unapologetically
live outside the box,
dream big,
and question everything.
This is the Defy the Norm podcast with Nomads with a Purpose.
So excited to have Kaitlin joining me today. I know you're going to tell me, no, you're badass, but Kaitlin, I got to tell you, I had to have the first ones because you are so badass. I mean, I hike, but you put me to sleep when it comes to hiking. So welcome, Kaitlin. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am so happy to be here. I look up to you and your family so much, and you are a big inspiration for stuff we do, and it's nice to see someone else, because I don't know if you feel this too. There's not many people who travel kind of like how we travel, and so it's nice to meet someone who isn't so much about, oh, this is my really nice rig, and this is another picture of the inside of my bus and another picture of the inside of my van, and more like, look at this mountain I climbed. Can you believe I scaled up this wall? Like that, I feel not so alone in this kind of crazy adventure nomad style that doesn't really care if the bus looks amazing or not. So
right. Oh, and that's so true, because I mean, it's great, all of you that have amazing rigs. We wish we did in some ways, but we would never sacrifice what it would take, whether it's less hiking and more figuring out this entrepreneur side, or even literally, I think I wouldn't even slow down my life enough to remodel. I've done it. I tried once. And I just can't sit still long enough. I have to go move and do things. So it's just, how we're wired. But you're right. There aren't that many. I think you're kind of like us, where every day it's okay, what am I going to go do today? What physical, am I climbing? Am I hiking? I need to be in nature.
Yeah, 100%.
And just to give listeners an idea, so right now, Kaitlin tell me how many miles you are into the PCT, and give us a little quick summary of what date you started, what date you're hoping to finish by.
Yeah, so I just passed mile 1,500 of the PCT. So I'm over halfway, and I have about 1,200 to go-ish. I started on March 24th, so I think today, I'm really bad at math, but I think it's day 56 is how long I've been on it. So I've been trying to do between 25 and 30 miles every day. And my hope is I want to finish in 95 days-ish. So probably around June 25th is the big hope. So it's been quite the journey. The last few days have been sort of a break where I haven't been in up to my waist in snow. And so that's been really nice. But what has come with that is because I'm so early in the season, most people don't know this, but if you hike in spring right after snow clears, all the trails are covered with winter trees. So all the trees that have fallen in avalanches. And so I have reached the point where the last couple of days I've been crawling over logs and trying to figure out how to safely get around mudslides. So I know I'll be hitting snow soon when I get to Oregon, but it's kind of cool. I can't wait to be done with California. I'm almost done. So
that's awesome. And I mean, you say 25 to 30 miles. And if somebody's not an avid hiker, you don't realize, you guys, 25 miles is legit. And it's hard. I do some hard hikes, but I rarely put in that kind of mileage, and you're doing it back-to-back days. So, wow. I am so impressed.
Yeah. I think my feet are okay. So the thing is, people ask me about my feet all the time. I grew up a professional ballerina, and so I have learned sort of the nuances of my feet for a long time, because you have to dance on point shoes and your feet are your asset. So I kind of have tricks, and my feet have been through so much that they are kind of good rough and tumble. But the thing that is hard for me is my ankles are really delicate. So I have to wear ankle braces. So I do have one ankle that's been acting up. But another thing about the miles, that if you don't hike a lot, what you don't think about is the elevation gain and loss. And that when I did the Colorado Trail, which I did in July, that's like 500 miles through the Colorado Rockies. And those are some of the highest collection of 14ers, mountains above 14,000 feet.
Yeah.
And every day it's like climbing 6 mountains because you go up and over a ridge, up and over, up and over, up and over. And that was probably the most physically challenging through hike I've done was that hike. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard. Probably the hardest one I could even close to relate is when the girls and I did Tour de Mont Blanc, and there was a couple days where we did back-to-back passes.
Yeah.
And one day we did like 22 miles, and I remember just like I was so done by the end because we actually needed to go like a couple more, but you're in Europe and you can get lazy towards the end and be like, I'm just gonna hop on the bus, it's okay. So we bailed on the last few miles of like 22 was a lot. And are you so your family's kind of trailing you as you're doing this, right? Do you check in with them like daily, every couple days? How often are you meeting up with them?
I try to talk to them every day, and we try to meet up every few days, which is really nice. So that another reason why I can do so many miles is I don't have to carry a heavy pack. I'm already pretty much of a lightweight. Like I don't carry a lot of the extra stuff. Like I don't even do a stove. I'd rather do cold soaking and not have to bother with, especially since those little propane canisters, this is kind of a tangent. They're so not good for the environment and you can't refill them or recycle them. So I'd rather just not deal with a stove, and I'll just do cold soak or that type of food option. And then I don't have to worry as much about water. So I'm not carrying like 5 liters of water. I can get away with 2 and be fine. And then I don't, a lot of people love the hitchhiking in town experience. I'm pretty socially awkward and have a lot of anxiety. So the idea of hitchhiking, I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts when I hike, and that just totally, I don't think I could do that without thinking I was going to die. So they follow me up and they fill me up. But one of the flip sides that people don't think of, because I've gotten some interesting comments that, oh, I'm kind of cheating because my family helps me or I get to sleep in my bed, is because I see my family all the time. I have 2 younger kids, and one's 12 and one's 8. I'm writing their homeschooling lessons. I'm checking their homeschool lessons. I still prep and make like lunches and dinners for everybody. I'm going to town to grocery shop. I'm cleaning. So it's like, yeah, I agree. I get to sleep in my bed, but I also have to deal with a child who might be tantruming over a lesson I gave them.
Right.
So it's like
my goodness.
balance.
First, that like would just make me so upset that anybody even has the nerve to like call it like cheating or not cheating. It's not, that's such, the achievement mindset is such, like everything that's wrong with society. But besides that, it's like when they say that, you just like, it takes a lot of internal strength, which I'm going to ask you some questions about, but to go like, okay, I just like the person who has the nerve to say that on the thing, like they obviously have issues. And it's really hard to just be able to like, you know what, this is my path. This is literally my journey. And so it's hard for you to put yourself out there because part of you probably feels like, you know what, I'm just going to go hike this trail. I don't need to share my experience. It's about me. But then you have so many people like me and others that really want to see and be like, wow, it's so amazing what you're doing. You're inspirational. So yeah, it takes some thick skin, which I feel it's not hard to, it's kind of hard to have sometimes.
Yeah. And part of it, selfishly putting the story out there or talking to people. And I feel like as interesting as social media and this whole online community thing has been, I do feel like you can find actual valid community. And there are people out there that are encouraging me and helping. And I think, I do get very hard on myself mentally, and that's a weak spot. And that's part of the reason why I challenge myself with this stuff, is just to see how far can I push that boundaries. Because my own personal philosophy, I guess, is I always want to be growing and learning. And so in a way, every time you do something incredibly hard or you feel like you're going to give up, but you manage to do it, it doesn't necessarily mean the next time you have to do that same obstacle, it will be easy, but you're just a little bit stronger. You're just a little bit more of an understanding of who you are and where your boundaries are. And I just think that the sort of boundaries of the human experience can keep growing and expanding. And so that's a lot of reason why I want to be out in nature. I want to do things that, like, this isn't easy for me. I'm not like, oh yeah, 30 miles
No
is
big
like
deal.
a walk in the park. Yeah, it's like, no, this is physically hard, and more so it's mentally hard for me personally with some of my own inner struggles. And so the push and push and push, I feel like it's just helping me always evolve as a human and learn.
Do you
So
know your Enneagram?
I don't. I tried a few tests, but I'm kind of all over the place. Every time I take them, if I'm in a different mood, I go from like 7 to 4 to.
From the little bit I know of you, you're probably a 4-wing 3. And that's why this challenge that you're taking on is so great for what you're trying to balance. And it's interesting because maybe we can talk a little bit, but you've raised a bunch of foster kids, right? Like quite a few.
34.
Yeah, that's not just, I think a bunch was an understatement. It's amazing. You have a huge heart, and I don't know if you probably already know that. The girls and I talk about chakras a lot, and so you have this really wide open heart chakra, and then as a 4-3, naturally, sacral chakra starts to be kind of one that's touchy. Like this sense of individuality is something you probably 4s tend to walk really firmly into it, but then flee from it and come back and forth. So between a heart chakra and a sacral chakra is manipura, or your solar plexus, and that's literally walking into the world. Like it's what you do and like doing, and so it probably balances this heart and sacral chakra in like magical ways for you to have something where you're able to balance between your own sense of individuality and all that you're giving to the world or to these kids. And so it is interesting. I always like look at it, I'm like, wow, you found the perfect thing for you.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I feel like you just analyzed me completely, because I'm like, the individuality part, the running from it like no other, and needing, because I always feel when I'm by myself on these mountains, it's the one time when I feel so small in this bigger picture. And I don't know how to explain it, but I love so many mountains, and it's not like I sit up there forever, but when I'm up there, there's something where I just feel completely at peace. Like there's no one that I need to go to. There's nothing I need to do. I can just sit there, and then I last 2 minutes and I'm ready to go again. But just getting those little pieces of where that kind of the chaoticness that's always stirring in me just sort of settles a little bit. So
absolutely,
I don't know.
because I totally relate, because I'm same way with mountains, and it's just like this interconnectedness. When you get up there, it's like life just makes sense. It could be completely chaotic at home, nothing else makes sense, but you get up there and just like, this is enough. Enough. I'm enough. This is enough. I don't need more. And like you, I don't sit still up there nearly as long as I should.
But I'm like, check, let's go.
I think even if we're up there, say 5 minutes and 10 minutes, I think like in a way your soul feels like it stays up there longer and sits there and brings it. It's like time kind of stands still, so it might be short, but you're absorbing a lot. I know what you feel like. It's pretty amazing. And I haven't been on top of a mountain for a while, I feel like, right now, and so I'm super jealous. Summer's almost here. It's neat. So it was kind of, that's what I was thinking about when you do these trails, and you might not think of it this way, but like it's almost like you're walking into your shadow self on the trail, as like you're taking in everything around you and this calmness, but you're also like going into like this sense of self, and like going, it's like as you go forward, you go in, right? You feel like as you're going down the trail, it's like it just takes you deeper and deeper into, because you have so much time for like those ideas and this like, it's the epitome of mindfulness in a way.
100%. I think so I have kind of a rougher past, and I've alluded to some mental fun labels that I have, and then also we have had 34 foster children, and even though I would want to adopt all of them, the system's super messy, and we've had to say goodbye to all but 2. And just all the stuff that I kind of have, is my reality, my day-to-day world of working with trauma, kids who've come from abuse, and people say, oh, I could never be a foster parent because I could never say goodbye. It's like, I can't say goodbye. I mourn my children and I miss them every day. And I wonder if they're safe, and not being able to answer that question. Like, these are all things that kind of haunt me. And so day-to-day life, I think I stay so busy because I want to have to process it. But when I'm hiking, I'll like lose track of times. It doesn't feel like I'm hiking for 8 hours because my mind is naturally, in its own way, slowly bringing in stuff where I can think about it and then kind of letting it go. And so a lot of times I'll be crying just because I'm remembering stuff or trying to figure out, like, okay, what did I learn from that? Or just sort of praying for a child I haven't heard from in a while. And so it is very much like I'm in nature and there's all this stuff that's going on. I'm making all these, like, checking off accomplishments on this trail, but a lot of it for me is just sort of all the stuff I can't talk about when I'm doing my life, or that I don't understand or I don't have control of, especially with some stuff with my children. It's just a way of letting myself heal and grieve and understanding more of like why I've chosen to do certain things in my life, or like why this may have happened and where to move forward. But I really love that sort of imagery of like walking into the shadow and into yourself, why I'm walking outside, because it's that complexity. It completely makes sense. And it is exactly what's happening, because my mind just loves to go to all these sort of like Pandora box dark places that, you know, when I'm at home or with my kids or like with people, it all stays very away, you know, it like it stays deep in my heart, all the aches, all that. I just kind of keep it far away for because you got to live, you know, you can't just sit there and process everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Victor and I recorded a podcast today that'll be played before this one goes live, and we were talking about that when he goes to San Diego, because he has some significant trauma from his past, and because of that he just has some sacral chakra blockages also. And he just went back to San Diego to work, and what he does, he overworks so that he doesn't have time to miss us or to think about these other things. And you just end up overdoing because if you have too much quiet time, it's like if naturally that stuff comes to the surface, and then you're like, oh, and if you don't have the right space to deal with that. And so it's really amazing, because you said it, like, how do people say, how do you get rid of how do you let go? And you're like, well, sometimes you don't have a chance to think about how I do, you just do. And it's almost the same as like physically, when you go walk, you're like, how do you walk 30 miles? You just do. You step one foot and then another and another. And before you know, the sun's setting, you're like, wow, I just ticked off 30 miles. That's just life, right? You know, you just have to deal. Yeah. It's messy. And go ahead.
I used to never solo hike. I actually avoided it because I knew that alone time without any distractions, because you can have alone time, but you could be on your phone, on social media, you could be reading, you could be doing whatever, where you're still not actually just sitting. But when you hike, you can't do that. At least I can't. I'll trip and fall, because I fall all the time. And so I avoided it like forever. And I was meeting with a mentor, and he just said, I just want, your project for this week is you just need to go for an hour hike by yourself. And I put it off for like months. I was like, no, it's not safe. What if I get lost? What if there's a bear? And like, I'm not like strong enough to do that. And finally I did it. And it was such a beautiful experience that's sort of perpetuated, where putting in a regular rhythm that I have alone time because I need to go there, you know?
So why are you finishing by June? Why are you trying to finish early? Do you guys have big things or other things this summer that you're hoping to do? Or it just was, you just wanted to be the first one across the finish line?
I did not really set out to be the first one. Somehow, even though I didn't start first, I'm ahead of the pack. And so that was an interesting thing to realize, because I thought I had read on all these blogs that like, oh yeah, PCTers often put in 30 miles days. And so I was like, oh good, I'm going to be with a bunch of people putting in 30-mile days. Come to find out, like most PCTers don't go past 100 miles. They like kind of get injured or didn't know what they were getting into. And then after that, only 20% actually finish. And so I found myself like, oh, I'm the only one out here still. And there's a big bubble like way behind me, which is fine because people intimidate me. But so like so my husband has to go to Palm Springs for a work thing. So we thought it would just be easier to be done by then. And then like I just like the idea of 0 days or slowing down just doesn't appear to my like go energy. But our plans for the summer, I mean, we kind of want to learn how to mountaineer. So we're trying to figure out how to find a guide to teach us how to do that. And then I want to spend a lot of time in the Cascades because we lived in Washington State for 10 years, but that was before I ever went outside. I just stayed inside all the time. So I would love to actually explore the state more. But that's about it. I mean, we have winter plans. We bought a ski pass this year because we taught ourselves how to ski last year. So now we're avid skiers. But that's about it.
That's awesome. I know I saw you guys went to Silver Mountain, right? Silver in Idaho. Yeah, it looked really fun.
Yeah.
I know skiing's grown on me a lot. What was I gonna say? We should climb Tetons together. Well, you did Middle Teton. Gabi really wants to do the Grand, but you need a little bit of gear, I think, for protection, supposedly. I think we're supposed to have a little bit of climbing gear, so mountaineering skills. So yeah, we should aim for that. That would be fun.
I think so too. And especially since I hate weeds, I like avoid it like the plague. So I heard that isn't Gabi like a really great lead climber?
Yes.
So maybe she could be the lead and drag. So
okay, so if anyone's listening, you want to be like help us guide us up that, because I know there's people out there that are like, oh, we'll take you up. From what I know, you only need protection in one little area. We need to buy gear anyways. I told her, I'm like, oh, just YouTube it. We'll be fine, Gabi. We'll figure it out when we're up there. But yeah, she is.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Yeah. And does your husband lead then the routes when you guys go climb?
Yeah, okay. He does. He leads it. And then we also there's some great top rope areas, or it won't technically be a top rope, but we will figure out how to scramble and hike up around and then kind of just belay down. So there's ways to get around it. We've done some sketchy stuff where I've sat there and been like, oh, we could have died just now, but yeah.
Yeah, that's how we're like so similar. Our souls are like on the edge all the time. We before Gabi got really good at climbing in the last couple of years, that's exactly what I would do. Like I was comfortable leading 5'8", but like after that, so I'd always be like traversing, and I would just traverse from one anchor to the other to set us up on something harder.
Yes.
And the kids totally make fun of me all the time. They're like, traversing. And it's usually more risky than if we just led the thing. Right?
It is, yeah. It totally is. But that's, it's just, there's so much. I'll get to a certain point and I'll be like maybe 1 or 2 bolts from the top, and my mental game just is like, this is good enough. We'll make this the top ankle, and then I'll put one on that locks and just, make it work.
Well, that's awesome. That's really good. So I was trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to. So I asked somebody I had interviewed last week, if you could tell your younger self any advice or what inspiration or, what would you have told your younger self 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Geez, I think I would tell my younger self that you were going to survive. I struggled a lot and still have suicidal thoughts. And I had some very close times when I didn't think I was going to wake up. And so I didn't kind of get out of it or ever really understand what happiness is, or that you can feel joy, or that you wake up and want to live inside of me that would tell my younger self that feels very right now. I feel like this dark space is the only thing that is out there, but just to keep pushing and just to keep trying to expand yourself, because you will meet other people that will help grow your heart or show you that there is another way to live and there are things that get you past whatever you've been through. But I just think when I was young, I just never thought that I would be alive. Honestly, right now, I didn't think I was going to live past 18, and I almost didn't. So it's kind of beautiful to see how my life is now and how many lives that I've been able to have included, and that I get to raise kids who don't feel darkness that I did as a kid. So it's kind of a ramble, but I think mostly it's just that life can be good and you are lovable and you are worthy of living. I think dark times like they last forever.
Yeah, and my Wi-Fi was cutting.
Oh,
there we go.
Hey.
I don't know what happened. Sorry. Might have been mine.
No, it's okay.
And I got most of what you're saying. It just cut off at the end, like you're saying how like you didn't think you'd get past 18, and life is, you realize it's so beautiful, and there's people out there. There's a community out there, and do you feel like was that about when you met your husband, or was that way before you guys?
So I met him when I was 20. So it was a couple years after that. I had been dancing I was a professional ballerina. I was dancing, and then I hit a wall. I was super depressed. I was using a lot of drugs. I was an alcoholic, and I started going to church, and that made a big impact on my life, and I got clean. And I met him actually in a Bible study, and I thought he was a jerk, and our first date was horrible. But then after I was his first girlfriend and like his first kiss, and after 3 months he was like, well, do you want to get married? And so we got engaged, and then 6 months after that we got married. So from the first time I ever saw him or knew he was a person to our wedding day was only 9 months. And now we'll be celebrating 15 years in June.
Congratulations.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But it was a good motivator. It was kind of a slow change. I think a big thing is after, so Buckets, our eldest, was actually our first foster placement, and we got to adopt her when she was 2. And when I first met her, that was like the last time I drank. Because I wanted to be fully present. I wanted to be able to feel all the happiness and the sadness. And it was a good sobering realization that I was kind of using that to numb out a lot of those emotions because I was scared of them. And that has definitely changed. I think it's hard. It's hard not to numb yourself, but then again, it's also gives you an opportunity to process stuff. And so I'm in a lot healthier mental place now than then. So
that's awesome. And
anyways,
she's 12, right?
She's 12 now. Yeah.
Okay. Does she want to do some of the trail with you?
She doesn't.
No.
I love Bucket. She is a very quirky little butterfly, but she is very much her own little spirit, and she'd much rather climb trees and paint butterflies and chase squirrels than like hike. But Monkey, our 8-year-old, he did part of the Colorado Trail with me. He camped and stuff, and then he actually did some of the PCT with me. He did a 30-mile day.
Oh, wow.
I told him if he wants to hike with me, he has to do that. And he did it. He was a champion. He is the one that he wants to be a mountaineer guide when he's older. He's incredibly, I think there's different intelligences, and he's physically a genius. He understands, even though he's very small and he has a medical condition, the way that he understands his body and how he is just adept at everything is just, it blows my mind to see how capable he is. But he is the one that he wants to climb all the mountains. He's the one that did Mount Whitney with me.
Okay.
And he loves rock climbing, and he wants to do all the sports. So he's my outdoor adventure buddy. Honey's my therapist. So that's kind of how they both fit into the world.
Well, and isn't that the amazing thing, like with homeschooling, is you can nurture different types of intelligence. You know,
Yes.
I mean, I used to homeschool very traditional, like would give my kids like Monday, this is what you're doing, Tuesday. Now it's like my youngest ones, I'm so hands off. Like, you guys will just figure things out. Like they have just different talents, and neither one of them necessarily is spelling or arithmetic really high on our priority list right now. But it's just amazing. You can just tell. And then as you learn more their Enneagram or what their personality type is, you're like, okay, then you can kind of like push them in each direction where they want to go. And you'll have to read, Isabelle had an article she submitted to Yogi Approved, and it's all about teenagers and sacral chakra. And you'll love it because it's probably going to like touch on some of the things you were talking about that you felt like when you were going through those hard times or those dark times. And there's people don't realize how, well, first, so many people probably can relate to you that, you know, you get around the wrong group, or you don't have the right parenting or the right guidance, and you just can feel so alone, so easy. And then today, I'm sure people are struggling with it even more, even if they're not teens, as adults. And it's just, you know, it's going to take time, but like us being louder and letting people know, like, there's another way. You know, you feel alone, but really there are people out there like you. But I know what you're feeling, what you're feeling at times. You just kind of shut out all the other things that I have a hard time engaging in the world too, more so that I'm just so busy doing me and like, oh, well, whatever, that I forget, like, oh, wow, there's, you know, if I want to help people, I have to be more vocal, or if, you know, things like that.
Yeah. I think right now, especially there, I feel energies a lot. I think I always tell the family, like, different towns have different vibes.
For sure.
And there's so much like hostility. And I know that it's not because people are anger is not a foundational emotion. It's a reaction to something else. It's always a secondary emotion, but there's so much anger because I think there's so much fear. I think people are terrified of losing what they want or not being able to get what they want. And so that fear becomes so hostile. So I've definitely been thankful for our lifestyle and thankful that I'm like alone in the wilderness, because it's too much for me, you know, because I just want everyone to just hug each other, you know. And then there's a whole nother tangent of the separation and not being able to touch, and how that is profoundly changing the makeup of how we interact with each other. And so that's a whole different tangent of like, I'm not a big touch person, but I recognize that like we are so having to stay away from people and having to sort of close off or like isolate long term has really kind of made people not empathetic towards other humans. And that's kind of, to me, much more scary than, and this is so controversial, but it's scarier to me than sort of a disease. And I'm not like on either side. I don't like to protest anything, but I just fear for that. I fear for what this generation, our kids are seeing and learning and being exposed to, that you do so much to self-preserve instead of like sacrifice to like preserve the community in a way. I don't know.
Well,
anyways,
I agree.
I think about that stuff a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still a strong believer that we're going to have a very big consciousness shift, but it's just, you know, how much worse does it have to get before we realize that? I mean, we pretty much stay out of any of those anger zones in the world. You know, for us, where we are, like, we hug, everyone hugs. I mean, when I got to South Dakota last summer, I walk in like, hey, I hugged. You guys hug here? And like, it's just, I can't, I agree. I just can't be in those hostile zones either, but it takes a lot of courage to be that assertive as I am in those situations, to just be like, hey, what's going on? I don't know you, but we should hug anyways, because the only thing to fear is fear itself, right? And so it's super important. It's very important to for us to not forget the value and the ramifications of what will happen if we lose connectedness, if we lose that connection. It's the same feeling you feel on top of the mountain is what you're trying to preserve in our interpersonal skills, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have hope. I think we're going to turn it around. I don't know how it might get worse, but I tell you, anyone who's listening, you know, I say this over and over. I think as soon as you decide to find your tribe, or decide that you're worth, if you're not in a happy place, as soon as you decide and you tell the universe, like, I want something more, that more presents itself. And I told in the first podcast where I interviewed somebody, it was in my astrology. Do you like read moon omens or anything? Do you know what moon omens is? No, not so much. Moon Omens is just like a Instagram account that does astrology, and my girls, like, they have fun downloading it each month, where it says, okay, this. Well, one of mine said something about, like, how important to find your soul tribe, and I'm like, I read it, and it was like a light bulb moment to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally believe this, but I never prioritize it. I never make a point to do that in my life. And I'm like, right there, that's like what I messaged you. I messaged the person I interviewed last week, and it was like, no, it's time. Like, we can start small. We can start with whatever is within our grasp, or that's attainable. And so I'm like, yes, I totally believe there's a soul tribe out there, and we need to be more vocal and bring people together. So I'm very thankful that you came off the trail so that we could connect.
I am so honored. I'm happy to get a connect with you. I feel like talking to you I move much, and the only thing I really know about astrology is I'm supposed to be a double Gemini, and so I'm told that I'm crazy because of that. So that's
probably why
I'm a Gemini, and I.
That's probably why you mistype for. I think you're a 4-3, but you could be a 6-7, and that could make you mistest. I could see that like a double Gemini. Yeah. Well, I think if you're a double Gemini, you are living like probably the perfect life for you. As I know, my last question.
Because I'm very flighty.
Yeah, but could you imagine, like, if you didn't defy the norm, if you told yourself, I am supposed to have a 9-to-5 job in a suburban house with this car, could you imagine how unhappy you'd be? Like, you know what I mean? The fact that you gave yourself permission to be you is so amazing.
Yeah, I just, we tried to buy a house, and we tried to do that, and I was just so miserable. I would just, like, sit in the corner and be like, there's too much space. I can't do this. We need to get out. And so it just wasn't for me. I mean, it's never been that way for me. Growing up, I had a different childhood. I dropped out of school in middle school because I was dancing ballet professionally and very independent and traveling across the country and doing these competitions. And I just, I didn't have a traditional childhood, and I don't think I would have wanted one, because I just, the idea of the normalcy of caring about fashion, that alone, I can't, like, really wrap my mind that would be fulfilling for me. And I like, people love fashion, and there's fashion designers, and there's so much creativity in that. And I am more fascinated by what other people like to do than actually doing that. Like, I love that people get really into cooking. It fascinates me that you like that, and I want you to tell me all about it. But the idea for me to sit down and really study a cookbook, I'm just like, I can't do it. It's too much for me. But yeah,
and who knows? Maybe
I don't mind it.
Yeah, but you never know, right? You never know. 10 years from now, you might be like totally obsessed with cooking, and you're like, I've made all these. You never know.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the one thing I promised my husband, because the hiking thing is something that was new, and I'm constant. And then I got into trail running, and then I did through hiking, and then I got us into skiing, and now I'm trying to inch him into mountain biking, because I think that should be our next thing that we do. And he's always like, he's the slow to burn. And I'm like, no, they're shiny. Let's run. That looks really cool. We should do that. And he's like, maybe we should give it some thought. And I'm like, no, let's go. And so that's the one thing I promised him, because he's like, where do you think we'll be in 10 years? I was like, knowing myself, who knows? Who knows where we will be, what we will be doing. I go, but the one thing I can promise you is it's going to be something exciting, because I keep, I'm known as the fun parent, because I keep everything very much like, what's the next adventure? What's the new thing we can do? Because I don't know, I'm going to be turning 36 in like 10 days. And I'm just like, you can do all these new things when you're older. Like you don't have, I think 20-year-olds think they are the only ones that can do all this stuff. But I'm like, no, like I'm not done yet. I want to go right river rafting. I want to climb all the mountains. I want to go parasailing. Like there's so many things to do. But
I was 36.
Anyways, I think that's part of the Gemini.
Yeah, I was 36 when I first learned to surf. So, yeah, I mean.
See, I that's one thing. You should teach me how to surf. I feel like
interest in surfing. I was just like, finally just started doing it. And then it became like my obsession for 5 years. And I miss it tremendously, but I won't go to California. So, oh, well.
I'm excited to almost be out of California. We lived here for 7 years down in Long Beach, and
it's just not the same.
I would never move back, I guess is what I would say. I just the focus of the culture was just something I couldn't really take very well. And then to see the impact it was having, especially on Honey, she's much more, Honey is Bucket's real name.
Okay.
She's much more impressionable by her surroundings. And when she started going to public school, I feel like I was starting to see, she's a very bright light. Like whenever she comes into the room, people are just attracted to her, and she's very outgoing and she's very loving. And there's something about her that you just want to follow her. She's definitely has this light about her, and I started to see it dim. And when I started to see my like very gracious, loving, egregious daughter become where she's crying every day before school and like fading into the back and becoming very angry, I knew that we had to get out. I was like, no, I can't let my bright light fade. So
yeah, it's true. That's what happened. Yeah, it totally happens like that. It's really hard. I'm very thankful that I've kept my daughters out of that, even though they write about it all the time on their Instagram and on their blogs, and it was hard at the time, but they're so thankful, and I'm so thankful that we were able to kind of protect that worthiness, that internal worthiness, and let that light shine. So that was great. Well, Kaitlin, I really appreciate you joining me. I hope this summer we cross paths. We really need to make an effort to, it sounds like I need to go to Washington.
For sure.
Or we'll meet up in the Tetons.
Well, we're going to stay. So we're going to go to Washington, and then eventually we're going to go to Minnesota. I really want to see my grandma. Okay. And so I've never been to the Dakotas. And that was one thing that I want to see, North and South Dakota. And then we're definitely going through Montana, because I haven't been to Glacier yet. And I wanted to see what the hype is about. Yeah. So we are going to be up here. And I feel like that's where you guys dwell too. So we'll have to meet up.
I mean, I think we've come within 100 miles of each other, like at least 2 or 3 times, if not more. And it's, but I just had, timing has to be right. I was too introverted. So now I'm working on Soul Tribe.
And I'm introverted too. So I think that also causes the complexity, because I'm like, that sounds really great. And it's like, oh, but that sounds really shiny over there. And so, and then, we're traveling, things happen, but
It does. So if anybody wants to follow Kaitlin, Runaway Must Bus, and the link will be in the description, but she is an inspiration to follow. She has amazing posts. I wish I kept up as well, because of my introvert. I end up I fall behind. It's really hard to keep up on social media and maintain sanity, but usually my girls keep me up to date, like, Kaitlin's at this part or this. I'm like, all right, good. They keep my head attached. Otherwise, I think I would have lost it a long time ago.
You have a great family. I love the way you and your daughters are so close. Like, that's really cool to see a family that's super close like that. So
they're
good job.
really nice. I know. If I could put it in a bottle and sell it, then we can. But who needs money? We're happy. We're happy. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So thank you. All right, Kaitlin, it was nice chatting with you. I'm going